If you're confused by the green packaging options available today, this is the series for you.
What is the beginning of life? So something that could be reused, that's appealing from a sustainability perspective. But if it was created, produced, the beginning of life in a totally irresponsible way, it might not be as good of an option as you think. Welcome to the Green Cannabis Packaging Series, episode number 6. We're Contempo Specialty Packaging. Thank you for tuning into the Cannabis Packaging Show. Please subscribe if you haven't already. Hope you guys are enjoying the series on green packaging, on educating the cannabis market of what are all the options so we can make responsible decisions that are actually good for the environment. Today's episode is reusable packaging, and what I mean by reusable is basically that the packaging serves a function beyond just being the packaging itself, or it lives on beyond the initial use. Rather than a package just being simply recycled or composted, it's something that you would keep on your desk, in your house, and it would serve another purpose. I want you to think about how long the item would be reusable for. So some items that would be reusable for a long time versus something that would sort of degrade over time, just be reusable once or twice. And the second thing I want you to think about with reusable is what is the beginning of life of the product? So we talked about end of life before. What is the beginning of life? So something that could be reused, that's appealing from a sustainability perspective. But if it was created, produced, the beginning of life in a totally irresponsible way, it might not be as good of an option as you think. Types of reusable. So I broke it down to same function or different function. Same function basically means, let's take like a flower jar, for example. You buy the flower jar, and then later you use this for flower again in the future. Same function. Different function, let's use the flower jar again, would be I buy this flower jar, but rather than refilling it with flour, I use it for a different function, such as, Talia, what do you think?
I would use it for Q-tips, cotton balls, hair ties.
Hair ties, so different functions, so you can reuse it, but for a different function. I think there's two types of same function. The milkman model would be more one where you use the flower jar, and that flower jar is then sterilized and then used in the business again as a flower jar for the second time and a third time. So it's used, it's cleaned, it's sterilized, and I have talked to people about that in the cannabis industry, and they've said in some places that's actually not allowed. You can't sterilize the package, which is unfortunate. There's an episode of the Cannabis Packaging Show. It's a few episodes again where I toured dispensaries in Denver, San Francisco, and Seattle as well. And in San Francisco, when I was at Spark, this wonderful person at Spark named Danny. I hope Danny is watching the show. Maybe she subscribed, maybe she didn't. She had a great reusable packaging idea of taking a flower bag and then using that to actually grow cannabis in it. So you have to check out that episode. And also they have this thing called take a jar, leave a jar, which is if you take a jar, people have all these old flower jars, she was telling me, that they don't know what to do with. And they can't bring them back and sterilize them and reuse them based on the law in California. But they say like just you take your jar, bring your jar, and then people, reuse the jar in some way. So there are people doing reusable programs as businesses like Spark, who has that sustainable mind, and then also individuals who, like Talia was saying, will just reuse the packaging for a certain reason. So what can you do differently as a business besides just saying someone's going to put paper clips or cotton swabs in the jar or the tin? What can you do, and can you create a program that's going to get people talking and that's going to show that you're sustainably minded? Let's get into a few examples. So this was actually something on our Instagram that we had where we could use a flower jar to, Talia, what's the brilliant idea with this one?
To pot a succulent in.
To pot a succulent in. Let's say like you use the flower jar and you could grow like, spices in your kitchen and line them up, and I think that could be a pretty cool way to repurpose the packaging. You have pre-roll packaging, which could be used. This is an aluminum tube for pre-rolls or even a glass tube. That I think this would be more same functions. You would buy this pre-roll packaging, and then you would keep this to house pre-rolls in the future. And the nice thing about that is if it's branded, which it should be, your brand is with that individual all the time. So maybe they'll get a pre-roll from somebody else, and it's in a junky pop top bottle, and you take it out of that and put it into your container, so your brand is with that individual. It's like a 24/7 billboard is one of the other advantages outside of just being sustainably minded, which is obviously very important to all of us, I would say, who are watching a channel like this. It's really good for your brand to have your brand as a billboard just constantly there in front of people. So whether it's the cotton swabs or the succulent or Paper clips in a tin, Vark's favorite example, very common, putting paper clips in a tin. Another example would be using a flower jar as an ashtray. I see people doing that all the time. They'll have an old flower jar and use it as an ashtray. Can you put that in your thought process from the beginning and design a package that will then cater itself to being like an ashtray? Another example of reusable packaging that a lot of people talk about all the time is candles. So when your candle burns out, there's no wax left, what do you use that candle jar for? And I think people use flower jars and candle jars in similar ways, but it's just a good, clean example of reusable packaging that anyone can understand. People save packaging, whether that's not really debatable. Not everyone does, but a lot of people, we see people constantly saying, oh, I would save that, I would save that. Can I have one of those boxes? Can I have one of those? I want to keep it. I'll use it for various purposes. So just know that when you invest in reusable packaging, you're going to have a billboard in front of your customers. This is why, I think about recyclability and composting, and these are things that are high in my mind in terms of priorities of people ask me all the time, what is the best eco angle? I don't want you to forget about reusability because I believe there's both the eco benefit and this huge branding benefit that can't be underestimated how powerful that can be for you. So get creative with your reusable packaging, and that's where I want you guys to innovate. Think of ideas and think of reusable ideas to keep your brand in front of people. I was thinking about this idea, and give me a thumbs up if you like the idea, and just don't give me a thumbs down if you think the idea is bad. But I want a thumbs up on this video if you think this is a good idea. Picture a wine glass, a flower jar, but picture it as a wine glass with a little stem on it. And then you have a child-resistant top, and you could design the CR package in such a way where there wouldn't be a huge ridge at the top. So we could design that for you. And then you'd have a flower jar that could then later be used as a wine glass with the brand on it. What do you think? Give me a thumbs up if you like the idea, and do not give me a thumbs down just because then you'll tank the video. All right, so just give me nothing if you don't like that idea. But reusable, be creative, be on the cutting edge. Don't just go with the idea of hey, you could throw some Q-tips in a jar. That's nice, but this is where you guys can innovate. Questions for the live audience. Actually, not the live audience. Questions for our audience here. What do you guys use your cannabis packaging for after you use it? Do you recycle it? Do you throw it away? What do you do with it? And in the cases where you do reuse it, tell me some examples. What do you use your flower jars for? What do you use, what do you tend to keep versus what do you throw out? I'd be curious. And the winner is going to get a prize. The best idea, the best use gets a prize. The prize to be named later, but it will be a good prize, I assure you. And anything else in terms of reusable? I don't want to make this too much fluff. You guys get the idea. Buy the packaging. It serves a purpose beyond just protecting and preserving and branding your product. Any other examples or thoughts on this one?
Listen, when you acquire safety pins, you don't think you're going to need them. However, I promise you, you need a safety pin. You could use the tin to hold your safety pins.
Or unless they're filled with paper clips, as Vark is.
So many paper clips that you can't fit them.
Then you can't fit them in.
An abundance of clips.
Thank you, Vark, for the paper clips. We really appreciate that example.
The high point of my career, the last 12 years in the industry, talking about paper clips on the show has been the top of my whole life, so I appreciate that. That's why I love the Cannabis Packaging Show.
So we talk about reusable packaging in this episode. So besides biodegradable, compostable, recyclable, what functions can packaging play if you make smart decisions? And one of them is is using it for paper clips. Let's go to the item of the week. We have a special item. It's a Mylar bag. And you might say, what's special about this Mylar bag? Well, the finish on this is a beautiful textured paper. It's something that no one's done. I haven't seen this in the cannabis industry. And it's a way to upgrade the Mylar bag. And the Mylar bag is something that I think people typically look at as, what do I do with it, right? So it's made with multiple layers. And that's the danger of the Mylar bag from a recyclability perspective. You can't recycle a bag that has just for simple terms, a plastic layer and then a foil layer and then another plastic layer, because that's how these bags are made, in layers. But this, I think, has potential as a reusable package. And I've run this by a few people and they said, yeah, I think I would reuse this. So this is another thing you could throw in the comments. Could you see yourself reusing this Mylar bag? It has a beautiful textured paper, which you probably can't appreciate totally on the camera, but hopefully we can capture some of the features of it. And it has a beautiful foil stamp. And it's something that's so much better than a generic bag. I could see somebody taking something out of a generic bag or pop top, putting it back into this bag, These bags do keep the product extremely fresh. It's not just about the aesthetics of it, it's also about the performance of it. So flower bags do keep the flower extremely, extremely fresh. So I could see this as a reusable option. It sort of takes the Mylar bag, which is traditionally frowned upon as something that just creates garbage. And I'm asking you guys, could this be a possible reusable option? And if it's not a reusable option, it just looks a heck of a lot better than most other Mylar bags. So check this out, contempopackaging.com, if you're looking for an upgraded Mylar bag for a premium looking brand that could potentially be reusable. I hope it's reusable. This is the one for you.
It also feels nicer. It's like that linen. I think it's a linen.
Yeah, that's that linen type texture. Yeah, it doesn't feel cheap. It doesn't feel, no one's going to keep and save a Mylar bag after its initial use, but people could definitely save something because it feels like a more finished product. And I think that's a lot of what, thank you for saying that, what reusability is all about is, and I'll look into the intense Josh camera, what reusability is all about is creating something of a higher perceived value that then makes it more likely for somebody to keep it. So if you make cheap packaging, people aren't going to keep it, but by creating that elevated level of packaging, you increase the odds that people will keep it, will reuse it, and now instead of it becoming waste, it actually serves a purpose. It's as sustainable as anything else. So this is a child-resistant bag, and it's also available in many textures. This sort of linen paper is just one example. We're learning how to manufacture bags using a variety of different papers, and there's still an inner layer which is going to keep the product fresh. So this is just on the exterior, so the freshness is there, but you can really add a unique texture and just a unique finish that nobody else has. So that's the item of the week. Thanks for watching the Cannabis Packaging Show. Please subscribe to the channel. We're going to be dropping a number of additional episodes on green packaging. And I want you guys to be experts. I want you to know everything there is. I don't want you to be blind, wondering what the options are. And hopefully by the end of this series, if you watch this series A to Z, you're going to know what's out there. You're going to know the truth. You're going to be able to say that's greenwashing versus this is legitimately good for the environment. And let's work together. Drop comments below. Let's collaborate. Let's brainstorm ideas. And that's it. If you need anything on the packaging side, hit us up, contempopackaging.com. We'll see you guys next week. Contempo Specialty Packaging has beautiful CR packaging for every cannabis product. Visit contempopackaging.com.